Right at the transfer portal buzzer, Miami loses one of their most experienced linebackers, but they managed to keep their entire running back room intact.
You are Locked On Canes, your daily podcast on the Miami Hurricanes, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Happy Sunday. I'm Alex Donno, University of Miami alumnus, co-host of Locked On ACC, and host of Postgame on the Hurricanes Radio Network. And thank you so much to the everydayers for making Locked On Canes your first listen. We're available free wherever you get your podcasts. We're free on YouTube. We're part of the #1 Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. On this loaded episode, we'll talk about the decision coming up on January 29th in a Durham, North Carolina courtroom on Darian Mensah's eligibility and NIL, how it's going to impact not only Miami, it'll impact Duke, it'll certainly impact the life of Darian Mensah, and it's going to have a ripple effect on the entire college football world. We'll talk about Miami keeping their running back room together against all odds. I know I didn't expect them to keep everybody out of the portal, but they did it. Unfortunately, though, the same cannot be said for the linebacker room. Right before the deadline. Remember, Miami players, because they played in the national championship game, had an extra 5-day window that opened the day after the title game and then closed Saturday at midnight. The extra 5 days to enter the transfer portal. And then right before the buzzer, Raul Popo Aguirre, heading into his 4th year at linebacker, he decides he's hitting the transfer portal. And I said this on social media. I said this to our Everydayers All Access Club, and I'll triple down on it here. This one hurts my heart. Popo is such a nice dude. He loves Miami, and I still believe that to be the case. And I think he would have played a really important role at linebacker this coming season. His family bleeds orange and green. We'll talk about why Popo has decided to move on. So Raul Aguirre Jr., 6'2", 233-pound inside linebacker. I believe he's got 1 year of eligibility remaining. I think he played just enough his freshman year to void the red shirt. So I think he's got 1 year coming up, and he wants to make the most of it. And I have so much appreciation for Popo. I mean, this is a player who's been on the team since 2023, which was obviously not a great year. Miami lost 5 games that season, took their lumps. And then he helped turn this program around, right? 10-3 in 2024, just missed out on the playoff, and then this remarkable CFP run. I know we fell just short of getting it done in the championship game, but I really appreciate the role that Raul Aguirre played, not only like on the field, making tackles, making plays as a rotational linebacker, but also the part that he played behind the scenes with the culture, because Popo, this is a leader of men. Now, I'm obviously, I'm not happy to see Popo in the portal. People are going to wonder, is there a chance they work it out and he stays at Miami? I never say never, because, we had the Gerard Pringle situation happen earlier this week where he ultimately stayed at Miami. So I don't know how this is going to end with Popo, but I'm hurt. I'm hurt, dog, that this is going on. And, when I was tweeting about it this morning, I heard from Popo's father, Raul Sr., who he emphasized that his son entering the transfer portal is not about money. It's simply about playing time. Because Popo, and I believe this to be the case, Popo loves Miami. He just wants to play and play more consistently. So if I read between the lines here, I would imagine that Mo Toure, returning for his final season in Miami's linebacker room, his 8th season, that likely impacted Popo's decision in a big way. And, we reported on the Toure thing, earlier this week, and it became official yesterday that Mo Toure is going to play another year at Miami, and that may have been what ultimately made Popo decide to enter the transfer portal. And so, all right, this is a player who wants to start. He wants to get to the NFL in a year. So, if he doesn't necessarily expect to start here at Miami, he wants to find somewhere he can. And I sincerely wish Popo Aguirre all the best. He's a true leader of men, and his family are fans of the show, which I appreciate so much. And, okay, so I don't know where Popo is going to end up. I did hear from Locked On Ole Miss host Stephen Willis. He told me that Ole Miss is interested in both Popo Aguirre and also JoJo Trader at receiver. So I don't know how that's going to end if they land either of those guys. Some people have hinted that maybe some rival schools might be interested in Popo. So, I think we're all curious to see how this ends. And Popo, by the way, this season at Miami, he appeared in all 16 games for the Hurricanes, had 43 tackles this year, and a pass breakup. So Miami's linebacker room, there's a lot of inexperience there, assuming Popo leaves. And it does look really thin on paper. And, of course, the timing of this departure leaves Miami at a moment where there's not much of anything they can do in terms of bringing in quality starters from the portal, because the portal's very picked over. But you know what? Instead of hiring some lawyers and trying to sue Popo for leaving, I'm going to wish him the best, because I honestly feel that way. We're not going to be petty about this like the Duke Blue Devils. So the linebacker room this coming season, Mo Toure is going to be the cornerstone of that linebacker room. We obviously know that. Miami, of course, losing Wesley Basaint. He's out of eligibility, headed to the NFL. So there's a lot that's going to be riding on Mo Toure's shoulders this year. Someone who had a good season and also knows Corey Heatherman very well, played with Coach Heatherman at one of his previous stops at Rutgers. We need to see Kellen Wiley Jr., who I have a lot of belief in. We need to see him in his second year take a huge step forward. Cameron Bobby Pruitt is going to be on the field a ton this season. He's a spark plug out there. You can expect him to get a lot of work at outside linebacker. Kamal Bonner is someone who I think was affected by injuries this year, didn't play a whole lot in 2025, but Bonner, the former NC State transfer who came in this past season, is going to need to be a heavy rotational guy in 2026. Ezekiel Marcelin, heading into his second year. This guy was a tremendous tackler at Miami Central in high school. I think he's going to have opportunities this season. True freshmen coming in, Karsten Bush and J.J. Edwards. We'll see if they get opportunities this year. So the linebacker unit, a lot of it has unproven depth who are going to need to step up and break out. Now, Corey Heatherman is Miami's defensive coordinator who had a very successful year. He's also the linebackers coach. So Heatherman is going to have an opportunity to work his magic here with what he's got. So happy trails to Popo Aguirre, and I honestly, sincerely, I wish you the best, because I am a huge Popo fan, and nobody can talk me into being petty on this one. I will not be petty. I wish him the best, as long as he doesn't go to Florida or Florida State. If he goes to one of those spots, all bets are off. Now, in some good news, an unexpected, pleasant surprise, Miami is able to keep Jordan Lyle in their running back room. Gabby Urrutia from Inside the U confirmed that either late last night or early this morning. I went to bed early, so I'm not sure when that came out. But Miami keeps their entire running back room intact, plus they add talented freshman Javion Mallory through recruiting. So, Jordan Lyle, and again, why a lot of people thought he might leave, has to do with the fact that, he had a down year this year, which was, I think, affected more by injuries than people realize. He was actually Miami's opening day starter this past season against Notre Dame, but he got hurt in that game. It took him a long time to get back on the field, and then by the time he was ready to get some work in, Gerard Pringle broke out late in the year, and Lyle didn't have his opportunity. So as a result of that, Jordan Lyle only had 25 carries for 108 yards and 1 touchdown this year, to go with 3 catches for 22 yards. So it was a really quiet season for him after he had a breakout year in 2024. So I appreciate Jordan Lyle deciding that the grass is not always greener. And he probably realized coming off of, a slow, limited year that maybe he wasn't going to get the sort of opportunities, NIL-wise and playing time-wise at other places. And it's worth it to stick another year at Miami and try to break through the rotation. So running back, stacked, right? I would say running back and wide receiver, probably the deepest rooms on the entire team, along with, defensive line, even though there's a lot of new pieces there. But yeah, I mean, Miami keeps Mark Fletcher Jr., he's back. He's going to be your top dog. Marty Brown is back. Gerard Pringle, he dipped his toe into the portal waters for a second, came right back. He's still here. Jordan Lyle is still here. Chris Wheatley-Humphrey is still here. And you throw Javion Mallory into that mix. So Miami is in tremendous shape at running back. And Jordan Lyle, there's no reason why he can't break back into that rotation if he has a healthy offseason and a healthy season coming up. Because I do believe his spot in that rotation was affected as much or more by injury than it was by any other factor. So I'm happy Miami gets Jordan Lyle back. And I think the Hurricanes, for my money, have the best running back room in the entire country. Like, we're talking, you remember the depth that Miami had in 2001 at the running back position? You're talking about that sort of depth coming up in 2026. But I want to talk more about the Darian Mensah situation, which is now everything is riding on a January 29th hearing coming up. And whether he wins that, loses it, Duke wins it or loses it, there is going to be a major effect on the greater college football landscape. You want to keep it locked right here. We're only getting started on Locked On Canes. My friends, it is an NFL playoff game day, and FanDuel is in playoff mode. Every game day during the NFL postseason, FanDuel is giving customers even more ways to get in on the action. Because right now, every NFL playoff game day, FanDuel users get a profit boost pack waiting for them inside the app. Each game day, you'll see a pack loaded with multiple profit boosts you can apply to the bets you like most. Open your profit boost pack first thing on game day and see what boosts you want to apply. The boosts let you lean into your game day instincts, whether you're backing momentum, defense, quarterback play, or coaching. Most importantly, the boosts give you more juice on the bets you already like instead of forcing you to bet something new. You make your picks, then you apply your profit boost to go after even bigger payouts while the playoffs get rolling. So visit FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL, and grab your profit boost pack on every NFL playoff game day. Thank you for making Locked On Canes your first listen. And if you're an everydayer, make it official by joining the Everydayer Club. You join that all-access tier, and you're getting exclusive episodes on weekdays of the Canes Colada. You're getting an exclusive Locked On Canes newsletter. I updated that with some big-time news and notes yesterday. You're getting one-on-one text access with me. We'll be answering text questions in just a moment, and so much more. Go to lockedoncanes.supercast.com to become an all-access everydayer today, and do not miss out on all the great stuff going on in the Everydayer Club. We get a question from ND Hater 85, who asked me, in your heart of hearts, do you believe that going all in for Darian Mensah is worth the black eye that the program is getting? At some point, you have to roll with what you have. And with Miami's offensive line, running back room at an elite level, isn't this the best time to give one of your young guys a shot? I think ND Hater, I can tell the way that you lean on this one. I get the sense that you don't think that Mensah is worth the trouble. But let me answer it this way. Darian Mensah can be one of the top quarterbacks in America this coming season. I would argue he was close to that last year at Duke. Was second nationally in passing in 2025. So at Miami, you give him one of the better wide receiver rooms in America, which will probably include his own top target from last year who may come with him here. You give him, for my money, the best running back room in the country and a better offensive line and a better defense than he had last year. So Miami, with Darian Mensah at quarterback, will project as a top 5 team to start the 2026 season. That would not be the case if it's one of your other quarterbacks. So from where I sit, if Darian Mensah gives you your best shot and a legitimate shot to win a national championship, because I think he can be even better than Carson Beck was this past year, would that be worth the quote-unquote black eye? Probably. And also, okay, how do we define a black eye for Miami's program? People will always find ways to hate on Miami. They will always find reasons to hate the U. If they weren't mad about the Mensah situation, they would find something else to complain about. Like, you look at what's going on at Ole Miss right now. Did you hear Dabo call them out? Like, Ole Miss literally just stole and tampered with linebacker Luke Farrell. He stole him from Clemson when he was in classes for a week. That's by far worse than anything Miami could have possibly done. And I don't see Ole Miss getting covered the way that Miami is. Like, people will always, whether it's Mensah or something else, they will always come after Miami. That's just our reality. Because right now with Mensah, the legal dispute at this moment is between Mensah and Duke. Like, Miami has not been accused of anything to this point or being sued for anything. So let's keep that in mind. And with this Mensah situation, when Miami reportedly got involved here and him wanting to come to Miami, at that time, nobody in Mensah's camp, from what was reported, nobody in his camp expected this much of a legal entanglement. At the time that he requested to enter the portal, which was the deadline Friday, 2 Fridays ago, like at that time, it was indicated to Mensah that Duke would not take it to the courts, even though they were obviously unhappy. But then that changed after the long holiday weekend, and Duke filed suit. So the entanglements continued. So for Miami, the plan for this entire offseason, this didn't change with Darian Mensah. The plan for this entire offseason was always to bring in another one-year transfer this year and then let your younger guys compete for the starting job in 2027. That plan hasn't changed. And by the way, when we talk about who hasn't entered the transfer portal, Luke Nickel, Judd Anderson, they're both staying at Miami. Darian Coleman, coming in as a true freshman, is obviously staying. And I think Coleman, Nickel, and Anderson will be a factor in a competition for next year. Emory Williams is not leaving because of Darian Mensah. Like, Emory Williams' plan for several weeks was to enter the transfer portal and seek another opportunity. That was in the works for a long time. He ends up at ECU, which is probably a better spot for him, a better chance to start than at Miami. So, all right, let's continue on this Mensah topic, because one way or another, this saga is going to go down as a game-changing moment for the state of college football. If Darian Mensah is, as we expect, ultimately allowed to enroll at Miami and sign with the Hurricanes football team, then the restrictive multi-year NIL deal that Duke attempted to use as an exclusive employment contract will essentially be invalidated. So it's going to change the way people approach NIL deals. Now, I think it's worth noting that the NCAA has lobbied and fought against defining student athletes as employees. They fight against that. The NCAA rules allow players to essentially become free agents in the transfer portal every year. It used to be twice a year. Now it's once a year. So Duke attempted, with what our lawyer, Alan K. Fertel, did describe as a very strong contract, Duke has attempted to supersede the NCAA's rules by locking up a player for multiple years through a restrictive marketing contract. So if a judge were to rule completely in Duke's favor, which would mean barring Darian Mensah to leave Duke, barring him to enroll elsewhere academically, barring him to join another football team, if a judge rules that way, that judge would essentially be opening the door for players to be defined as employees, and it would open a Pandora's box that I don't think the NCAA wants to be open, because they've fought against this for years. Because if players are defined as employees, it opens the door for collective bargaining. It opens the door for benefits, including past benefits over a century worth that the NCAA might be forced to pay out. So I can't predict the future. Now, my guess remains that a judge will not bar Mensah from leaving Duke, and I think Miami will ultimately have to pay Duke a 7-figure settlement to release Darian Mensah's NIL rights. And it doesn't seem to me like Duke is operating as if they're going to keep Mensah there. Certainly doesn't seem like Mensah thinks he's going to get stuck there, and I don't think Miami thinks they're not getting Darian Mensah. So I think this ultimately is going to be resolved by having to, buy out his rights. And I understand, and let me also say this, I understand why Duke is fighting this in court, because Duke wants to protect the value that his signature, Mensah's signature, has on that piece of paper. Like, I could understand them fighting for that. But the question is, what are they fighting for? Are they really fighting to keep him there and not allow him to leave? Or are they fighting for the monetary value that comes with breaking that contract? I think it's ultimately going to come down to the monetary value, which will probably be defined at $4 million, because that's what Mensah and Duke agreed his marketing rights were worth for this year. So I think he's going to end up a Miami Hurricane. And again, if your opinion, anyone out there, I'm not just speaking to ND Hater, I'm speaking to everyone out there. If your opinion is Darian Mensah is not worth the trouble, I think if you feel that this guy gives you the best possible chance to win and compete for a national championship, then if you get him, the juice could ultimately be worth the squeeze. That's my take on that. We get a question from Iron Man Mike, who says, hey, what about the wide receiver from Duke? What are the chances on him coming here? So you're talking about Cooper Barkate, who's in the transfer portal, 1,100 receiving yards and 7 touchdowns this past year. He was Mensah's top target. I think as Darian Mensah goes, Cooper Barkate will go. It looks to me like they are both hoping to wind up in Miami, that they want to play together. And I think it's pretty telling that Cooper Barkate has not signed anywhere else, right? I mean, he's been in the portal for several days. He's not gone anywhere. So, yeah, I think Miami has a really good shot of landing Cooper Barkate, which is going to make Miami's receiving room one of the better units in the entire country. All right, we got a question about Miami's offensive tackle situation and how Miami's defense is going to hold up next year. You want to keep it, well, I guess this year, next season, this year, you want to keep it locked right here. We're not done yet on this brand new episode of Locked On Canes. Tax season is here, my friends, but it doesn't have to take over your life, because this year, TurboTax is making it easier than ever to just hand things off and move on with your day. With TurboTax Full Service, you can have your taxes done for you by a trusted local expert start to finish without the stress or the guesswork. Instead of spending hours trying to figure out forms, you can meet with a local TurboTax expert in person or connect online. They handle everything from W-2s to self-employed forms and work to get you every deduction. Guys, it's a huge time saver, and it gives real peace of mind knowing that an expert is handling it. For a limited time, you can have your taxes done by a local TurboTax expert for just $150 all in. If a TurboTax expert didn't file for you last year, just file by February 28th. Take taxes off your plate and get back to your life. Visit turbotax.com/local to book your appointment today. Thank you to the Everydayers for making Locked On Canes your first listen, and thank you for making the Locked On Podcast Network the #1 sports podcast network in America. You guys are awesome, and make sure you check out that Everydayers Club as well. We get a question from Pat Mack, who is one of our awesome Everydayers. He says, hey, do you think that the university will waive the enrollment date for Mensah and Cooper Barkate so that they will be able to participate in spring practice? I am sure that they will. We know University President Joe Echeverria is very friendly with athletics. He's not going to fight against them enrolling. He will fight for them enrolling. So I'm sure they're going to do whatever is possible. If Miami ultimately, let's say January 29th, this coming Thursday, we do get good news, and Mensah and Barkate are able to transfer to Miami, I would think that they would do whatever they can to move those mountains. But I also, listen, I understand that on the academic side, those deadlines are there for a reason. And it's like, it's not easy to like waltz into a course like 2.5 weeks after that course started. So, I'm not going to pretend this isn't significant, right? That and there's a reason, by the way, that Darian Mensah filed that emergency motion to try to become eligible to enroll last Friday, that it seemed like the court ignored because of those academic deadlines being in place. So we'll have to see what kind of accommodations happen. But, Worst case scenario would be, I think worst case scenario, he would end up at Miami, but may not be able to enroll until summer 1, which would unfortunately mean no spring football. But I think sooner or later, I believe Darian Mensah will be Miami's starting quarterback. From the 727, do you think Miami has an offensive tackle problem? Definitely a drop-off in experience from last year. You lose CC Maui Noah, who for 3 seasons was one of the top right tackles in the country. I would say the top right tackle this year. And Markel Bell had an awesome year. I would also say, though, that despite what Miami is losing on the offensive line, I think most programs in the country would still be envious as to what Miami has. Jackson Cantwell, some believe, is a generational offensive tackle, top recruit coming out of high school this year. Cantwell, he's going to have to earn it, but he's going to have his opportunity, we believe, to be the starting right tackle year 1, which was the same situation that Maui Noah was in 3 years ago, and he made the most of it. We believe Cantwell can seize that opportunity the same way that Maui Noah did. You have plenty of other players, and this is such a blessing the way Alex Mirabal, who's one of the best offensive line coaches there is, the way he cross-trains his offensive linemen. You have multiple O-linemen who are equally capable of playing tackle and guard, right? That's the case with Samson Okunlola. That's the case with Matt McCoy. The player Miami brought in, Jamal Merriweather from the transfer portal, is also capable of playing tackle or guard. So you're going to have multiple options, I think, to compete for the starting left tackle job with more experienced guys. I mean, perhaps this is Okunlola's chance. I think Okunlola's a starter either way, whether it's left guard or left tackle. But, when he was coming out of high school as a 5-star recruit in 2023, we thought this is Miami's future starting left tackle. That may be his opportunity this year. So I don't believe Miami has an offensive tackle problem. I just think it's not as obviously, settled. It's not as obvious of a strength as it was a year ago. I think Miami can be okay there. Stephen C. asks, hey, how do you think this defense coming in will stack up against last year's national title run defense? I described it yesterday, after Miami landed their latest transfer portal recruit, Keona Davis, who was a full-time starter at Nebraska on their defensive line. Miami is not rebuilding the defensive line; they're reloading it. Will they put up as many pressures in 26 as they did in 25? I mean, probably not, because Ruben Bain and Akeem Mesidor were generational. But we also have to remember this is going to be the second year of this defense in Corey Heatherman's scheme. So usually, when you have an O coordinator, D coordinator, like in the second year, the fit, the understanding, the chemistry usually gets even better. And Miami's going to have a really good defensive line. I mean, you talk about Damon Wilson, Marquise Lightfoot, Herbert Scroggins, Justin Scott is back this year. Ahmad Moten is coming back for his final season. You've landed some other good players in the portal. I think Miami's defense is going to be in really good shape. I mean, I guess we worry a little bit more about linebacker because, you lose Wesley Basaint, you get Torrey back, but you lose Popo, and you're going to have unproven depth step up. The most impactful losses in the defensive secondary, Keontae Scott and Jacoby Thomas. We're really going to need, and Bryce Fitzgerald was awesome this year as a true freshman. You need him to take the next step. Zechariah Poyser, I think, who was a full-time starter this year, is going to need to be even greater next season. Omar Thornton, who you signed from Boston College, will probably be your starting nickel this year and can rotate at safety as well. You have O.J. Frederic back, and you have Xavier Lucas back, so cover corner is going to be a big strength for Miami. I think the defense can be really good. I mean, is it going to be – I don't think they'll apply as many pressures as they did last year, but I think they're going to be it's a unit coached by Corey Heatherman that is going to be a strength. I will put it that way. I appreciate everybody for making Locked On Canes your first listen and your first watch. Make sure to smash that like button and subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify. Subscribe on YouTube, wherever you get your podcasts, and make sure you're clicking on the YouTube because we're so close to hitting 1 million views for the month. We've never done that before. We're so close. I want to smash 1 million views, maybe get to 2 million views by the time January is over. So make sure you click on that YouTube channel, and we'll talk to you all next time. We'll have a new episode tomorrow on Locked On Canes. We are part of the #1 Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.